Hey guys, thanks for coming back to Craft Challenges. If you're here, then that means that you want to learn how to make the hanging rainbow decoration. Here are some of the things that you're going to need. First, you're going to need some yarn. I happen to have all of the colors of the rainbow, but if you don't, you can use whatever colors you have. You're also going to need something to tie it around. You could use a fork or a hair comb or even your hand. You're also going to need something to make a circle out of. I'm going to use these two things, but if you have a hard circle at home, you can use that. You'll also need a scissors and a pencil. Alright, let's get going. For this first part, you need something that's hard and round. I didn't happen to have anything that would work, so I figured I would just make my own thing out of the top of a cup and a piece of cardboard that you can find anywhere, like a cereal box or even like a box of Pop Tarts. So first I took a pencil and I traced it around, and then I'm going to cut that out. And then I'm going to take the top of the cup and I'm going to cut the inside, that's that solid piece, out so that I have just a ring. If you're doing this, make sure you're careful that you don't send plastic flying anywhere and that you don't cut yourself with your scissors. Okay, so now I need to make a ring out of the cardboard, so I'm going to do a similar thing where I trace it onto the cardboard and then I'm just going to cut the ring out of it. Again, make sure you're careful using your scissors doing this. Alright, and then we're on to the yarn. I'm going to start with red and then I'll move through the rainbow that way. You're going to need to pull out enough yarn to work with, but don't pull out so much yarn that you make a mess. And then I'm going to pull out a similar length of yarn for all of the other colors that I'm using. Once you have all of the yarn out that you want to use, you're going to take the yarn and fold it in half so that you have one loop on top and all of the ends together at the bottom. Now you're going to need a shorter piece of yarn, probably only like 4, 5, or 6 inches long, not that long really. And at the top of the loop, you're going to hold the end of that yarn and then make a small loop underneath it. Then you take the tail of the yarn and you just wrap it around. Make sure you leave the bottom of the loop open though. And then you wrap it at least 4 times. Once you wrapped it as far as you want to wrap it, then you take the tail of the yarn that you have in your hand and you push it up through the hoop or the loop that you left on the bottom. Once you do that, then you can pull both ends of the yarn and it'll make your knot really tight. That's called a loop knot. If that didn't make sense how I explained it, you can always look up another tutorial online and then just come back here to learn the rest of our project. I realized that I kept mixing up my yarn in the loop, so I decided to tie a knot at the top. This is completely optional, and if you guys don't want to do that, that's fine. I just thought it would be easier for myself. So here I had decided to twist all of the 2 colors that I had hanging down. So I needed a little weight on top so that I wouldn't be pulling it off the table all of the time. And then I just twisted each color that matched as far as I wanted to until I felt it was good. And then I did the exact same thing for all of the other colors. At the bottom of the length that I wanted twisted, I then just tied a knot so that the yarn wouldn't come undone from what I had finished twisting. So now we're going to be using the circle. I use this, so I'm going to put the two pieces together. As a suggestion, I would cut the cardboard piece just a little bit smaller than your cup piece if you're doing the exact same thing that I did. But you're going to put them together as best as they fit, and you can tape them or you can just use them as free pieces, whatever works for you. Since I had cardboard, I then separated my cardboard piece out into 8 different pieces because I have 8 different colors. If you don't have cardboard, you could always use like a marker or a piece of tape to help you separate it out so that your colors go evenly. If you're just using one color, then you can just skip this step. I decided to start with purple because that's the least amount of yarn that I have for this project. So what you're going to do is you're going to wrap it just around the circle. I went from the inside to the outside. You can do whichever way you want, and then you're going to do this with all of your colors, and you're going to try to make it as evenly as possible. I can promise mine isn't as even as I want it to be. Once you finally have that done, your project should look kind of like this. It should have one end connected with a hoop on top and then one end loose with just yarn on the bottom. And make sure you leave enough yarn on the bottom that you'll be able to hang stuff from it. When I cut my yarn, I made sure I made the first one shorter than the next one, and it just kept getting longer from there. So the third one's shorter than the fourth one is shorter than the fifth one, and so on until the last one, which should be the longest piece of yarn. So now we're moving on to making the puff balls. I'm going to use a comb. If you don't have a comb, you could always use 3 of your fingers or something else similar in size. How you make a puff ball is you take a piece of string and you hold one end over whatever you're going to use to wrap it around, and you just wrap it. And I mean wrap it like a bunch of times. Like I think this one I did at least 50. You could do more than that, but don't go past 100. Once you feel like you've wrapped it enough, then you can cut the end off so that you're not connected to the rest of your yarn anymore. Then you're going to need just a little bit of yarn. I think I did about 6 inches here, but that was too much. You could probably do with less. And what you're going to do with that piece of yarn is you're going to push it through one end. I put it in the middle of my comb. And once I got it to the other side, I pulled it up and around through the top of my comb so that it was about even in the middle. And then I tied it here over the yarn twice. And I made sure it was tied really tight. After you have it tied here twice, you're going to do the same thing again on the other side. Push it through the bottom on one and pull it over the top on the other. And then tie it as tight as you can. And I mean as tight as you can. And do it twice. Once you have that done, then you can cut off the extra string that you'll have, if you have any extra string. And then you're going to very carefully cut through the edges of the yarn. If you have this on your hand, please take it off before you take out your scissors. Once you have it cut off, then you can pull it off of whatever you have it on and fluff it out a little bit. And then if you don't like quite how it looks, you can always give it a haircut so it looks a little bit more symmetrical or the same all the way around. Once you're happy with that, we're going to do it 7 more times so that we have 8 altogether, or less. Depends on how many strings you put on your circle. I'll also show an example here of making ones with just using your fingers because I decided to make 2 really small ones as decoration on the top. So you literally just wrap it around your fingers, just make sure that you're not wrapping it too tightly. Once you have that done, then you can either cut the string first or you can take it off of your fingers and then cut it. But once you take it off of your fingers, then you need to have your other string handy so that you can wrap it around it and then tie it just like we did for the other ones. And you're going to tie it twice on one side and then flip it over and tie it twice on the other side. And then once you have it tied nice and tight, then you're going to take your scissors, snip off the little end, and then cut through all of the loops that are on your little puff ball. And now we're on to the final step. You're going to connect your hanger with your little puff balls. So take your little puff ball and find just a piece of string on it, and then you're going to tie a knot to connect the two. And then you'll have to do this with all of your little puff balls. And once you finally tie on the last one, then you're gonna be all done. You ready to see what it looks like? Thanks for making a craft with me today, guys. See you tomorrow.